In the pooled analysis, data from 4 different clinical studies were pooled together in order to be able to look with as much power as possible over the longest term follow-up as possible to see how patients with the del17p risk factor or the TP53 mutation risk factor fare over time in terms of their overall survival, their PFS, as well as the safety when treated with ibrutinib. What was seen is that unlike prior results with chemoimmunotherapies, we get a progression-free survival that exceeds 3/4 of the patients at an extended follow-up. You know, the good news about the data from this study is that the patients who really do remain at the highest risk based upon current consensus guidelines such as NCCN, where the deletion 17p and TP53 mutations are called out as a specific class of patients. These patients do very well with ibrutinib-based treatments, and in fact do very similar to patients without these high risk factors. So one of the advantages of ibrutinib is that it is able to provide these similar benefits in cases when it's uncertain what treatment status a patient might have, or in situations where testing is not available. So in the integrated analysis, we took 2 of our randomized phase 3 studies that had been run within the company on which we had done extensive testing, not just of deletion 17p and TP53 mutations, but we also had the unmutated IGHV assessed, as well as a number of other single genes in which mutations have been demonstrated to provide poor risk characteristics to patients, including Notch1 and other single gene mutations. And with this, again, with a very prolonged follow-up, we looked at the PFS and OS of these patients. And again, no matter how we looked at it, whether we were looking at it by a single gene or whether we were looking at it based upon the donor hierarchy of cytogenetic abnormalities, or some of the more recent integrated approaches to assessing this that combine the cytogenetic abnormalities with the single genes, no matter how we looked at it, the PFS, again, was being provided by ibrutinib-based regimens, was very similar for patients with these particular risk factors versus patients without. Similarly, the OS was also quite similar. With all of this, in both studies, the safety for these subgroups continued to be similar to the safety observed overall, with decreasing adverse events over time, as has been consistently seen with ibrutinib over time. The other really interesting thing is that in addition to these 2 particular analyses based upon our clinical study data, at ASH we also had 2 abstracts looking at real-world data, both in the form of a chart review as well as in the form of the Inform CLL registry study, showing similarly that the ibrutinib-based regimens are providing a unique benefit relative to other treatment options, particularly the chemotherapy options. The take-home message from the combination of these 2 studies really is that no matter what your risk factor is, ibrutinib-based therapy is going to provide you as a patient the similar benefit if you have the risk factors or if you don't have the risk factors. So it really gives the long-term confidence in the efficacy and in the safety of being able to do very well.